Hi, so today on CMO Journeys, I am joined by Matthew Lieberman, the new Chief Marketing Officer and Business Development Officer at Cooley, the law firm behind many of the most influential tech and life science IPOs in the world. Matthew spent over 2 decades at PwC, eventually serving as CMO for the US and Mexico, and helping transform the marketing function at a massive scale. He's talked a lot about how today's CMO must be part strategist, technologist, and finance executive. And now he's bringing that mindset into a competitive legal market just as the IPO window begins to reopen. So Matthew, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Christian. Happy to be here.
Great. So before we get into your journey and what's ahead, I'd love to know, I know you're still fairly new into the role, but what's been one of the most surprising or energizing parts of your transition into Cooley so far?
It's been an incredible transformation. I am in month 2, so it's still all very new, as you referenced. I think the most surprising thing has been a combination of, number one, how unique and special the Cooley culture is. Every company, every firm talks about the people make the difference, but it is palpable at Cooley. In fact, when I was going through the interview process, I thought I was meeting with all of the ringers because everybody was felt like a consistent script and had such positive energy and had such passion for the firm. And I would combine that with the pure passion to really enhance the marketing and business development functions at the firm. And that feels something that's a little bit different than maybe some of the other professional services firms where I've worked and or have experience with, in terms of recognizing the importance of having a leading B2B marketing team and how that can be accretive to what the firm's goals are, not just in terms of generating revenue, but everything from brand to recruiting to relationship enhancement, et cetera. And the full commitment of leadership and all of the other partners at the firm in terms of getting behind this.
That's great. Yeah, sounds like an exciting opportunity for you. And I definitely want to come back to a couple of those points as we get into this chat here with you. But this is CMO Journey. So I do want to rewind first and would love to know, where'd you grow up? What was your upbringing like?
So I grew up in Los Angeles, very traditional upbringing, but went to school with a lot of celebrities and celebrity kids, of course, being part of LA. I then went to school in LA as well at USC, University of Southern California, where I was a dual major in business and film. So I have a very non-traditional marketer background, and coming out of USC, like many graduates did, went to work in the entertainment industry, worked at a couple of film studios on the creative side. And so that involved script reading, project development, et cetera. And I loved it. And I think that informed a lot of how I look at marketing today, because that need to really apply a creative mind and viewpoint to everything we do cannot be lost. I recognized when I was there that I also wanted to get involved in the business aspect of development as well. So the studio I was at said, please go back and get your master's. As soon as you come out, you have a role on our business team. While I was in my master's program, I was asked to interview with a number of firms, including one at that point, Price Waterhouse. And I didn't know much about them. I certainly didn't know anything about the accounting profession or the fact that they had tax and consulting divisions also. And the extent of my interaction or experience with them has been that they were the auditor of my studio. And in meeting with PwC, they had an incredible opportunity wherein I was able to join a rotational program working across multiple divisions within PwC for my first couple of years. The majority of my clients were entertainment media companies. I think to this day, I'm still the only consultant who has worked with all of the major film studios. I also worked with a lot of financial services institutions and other investors and insurance companies because we were getting involved on the diligence side of the house. It could not have been more different than the creative background I had prior to the program, because it was learning how to do Excel modeling. It was learning how to do complex financial analysis. I say the only similarity was the very beginnings of what we now call storytelling, being able to pull something together into a compelling story that would speak to investors or other shareholders. And from there, was planning on doing 2 years, like many people do in professional services firms. And fast forward 10 years in, I was looking to leave the firm. I just was ready for something new and different. And I had an incredible experience there. And PwC said, "What can we do to get you to stay?" And I said, "Well, marketing seems really interesting." But to put that in context, that was at a time when marketing was pretty much 100% either large events or long form PDF thought leadership that was printed out and handed to our clients, targets, and others. And what really excited me was the research aspect of this. It's something that I'd always been involved with throughout my career. And I think that both performing original research and also just putting out insights is something that can be so important and so differentiating for any firm. And so I moved over with very little, if any, marketing experience into our marketing team, leading marketing for our entertainment media practice. Kind of fell in love with it. I said, might as well give this a try for a little bit longer, and then moved up into a variety of roles within marketing at the firm. And even though I always considered myself an industry guy, at some point they said, "Would you like to take over marketing for advisory, which is the consulting practice?" And at first I was apprehensive and was thinking about it. I'm like, I don't know, that doesn't really feel like aligned to my journey, but figured, why not? Let's give it a try. It seems there's a huge, multi-billion-dollar business unit, and had tremendous opportunity there as we went through double-digit growth for many years and really built our first team. I then moved into the CMO role about 8 years ago and sat in that role for about 7 years. And it was a really exciting time, and will tie into why I think one of the reasons I'm at Cooley now is it allowed me to lead a full-scale marketing transformation. And it's interesting because PwC being, 150-year-old firm, amazing long legacy. We talk about the impact it's had on every major company throughout time, on all the different phases of the Industrial Revolution that PwC was involved with. But with that said, I was only the third CMO for PwC. At that time, traditional professional services, meaning accounting, consulting, tax, had pretty nascent marketing. It certainly wasn't centralized. It wasn't something that was very strategic. There was the recognition that it could probably be helpful, but it wasn't something that we really spent a lot of time on. That was at a really opportune time. When they talk about timing is everything, because the B2B world, especially professional services marketing, was exploding. And we had new technology, we had access to data for the first time, and we had support to build something, because it was also at a time when there was increasing competition amongst the traditional competitor set, new competitors coming in, new technology companies that were also infringing on the space, and quite frankly, a huge change in B2B buyers. They were expecting experiences very similar to what they're experiencing in the B2C world. And we had done historically across the board a very poor job of any type of client development and real focus on client experience. So over the 7 years, we transformed the function a few times. But what that involved was really evolving the team itself. And so that was both the structure, bringing in additional heads that filled skill set gaps that we had, putting people in different seats that may have been better for the firm, and really acting as one marketing team for the first time, because it was interesting how siloed everything was, as you can imagine, highly complex organization like PwC. We put processes in place. We had none from a marketing perspective. There wasn't even a centralized budget at that point. And we really redefined and built up a MarTech stack that would enable us to do a lot of what we wanted to do, which was ultimately a number of things, including enhancing brand, developing relationships, developing pipeline and revenue, really focusing on a better client experience, and really looking at the end-to-end journey of our external stakeholders, which are much bigger than just our clients and targets. And something that we hadn't really thought of in any formulaic way. So it was quite a ride. And then I was traveling weekly, but LA was still home. We had a vacation home in Palm Springs, a couple hours outside of LA. And during COVID, like most people who were in New York for work that week, we were told in March 2020 to get on a plane and go home. We'd never spent more than a week out here in Palm Springs where I sit today. And fast forward to, I will spend a few weeks out there while this passes over, to ultimately moving out here full time, which has been absolutely tremendous, especially given the virtual nature of a firm like PwC during that time period. And then there were various opportunities that came up along the way, but there wasn't necessarily great interest. And then Cooley came along, and it's an incredible firm. A little bit about what you were referencing at the beginning, the types of projects they worked on, the types of clients they had were unmatched. And the true desire to also do another transformation where I could roll up my sleeves and really work with a firm. And interestingly, law firms across the board are very similar to where traditional professional services was when I took on the role at PwC. And there are a number of law firms that have either recently hired within the last 18 months and or have open recs now to replace their CMOs, recognizing that a lot of the traditional playbooks aren't going to work anymore, and that we really need to evolve to a place that other B2B companies are, and also one that is going to help us both defend our position as well as grow it in a increasingly complex world. Which brings us to today.
Wow, yeah, that's a great story, and yeah, it feels like you're kind of reliving where you started before, and it'll be exciting to kind of see how that takes shape. And obviously, with AI and everything, that the times are different. But yeah, would love to talk a little bit more about that. Curious, along the way, I'm sure, especially stepping into marketing, which you didn't, as you said, didn't even know too much about at the time. Was there a mentor or a boss or somebody early on in your career that shared something with you that kind of guides how you lead today?
Uh, there were a couple of individuals at that time um, who really did set the formation of my philosophy. And the first was, there was a partner at the time who was my coach, who's still at the firm, PwC, named Paige Hayes. And when I spoke to her about wanting to move into marketing, she gave me one of the best pieces of advice that I continue to impart on others, regardless of what function they sit in, which is, are you running from something or to something? And she said, if you're running away from client service, I don't support you taking this role. But if you're running to marketing because you want a new challenge and you want to try something new, let's get you there. And I think that was the very first step. The second was a partner that I worked for, who's still a mentor to me today, Deborah Bothan, and she ran the entertainment media practice at the time at PwC. And she always encouraged me to think differently, push boundaries, and to have more confidence in myself. And that manifested in a few ways. One was, at PwC or any large firm, things have been done historically a certain way, and it was assumed that they should always continue that way. And when you take that down to something specific like marketing, it's like, we've sponsored this event for 10 years, so why wouldn't we sponsor it again next year? As opposed to taking a step back and saying, is there any ROI? Is there something better? Is this even fulfilling something that is part of our strategy tied to what our business goals are, et cetera? And so it was, one of the key things from her was, don't just accept status quo, but really listen to what individuals are trying to accomplish and set your own goals. And then also, everybody has some level of imposter syndrome, but just to go with it. We have the ability, all of us, to be leaders in terms of being okay to say, I don't know the answer to this. I haven't done this before. I have a different suggestion of a way to do this, and really testing and learning. And that whole philosophy of fast failing, not everything is going to work. Thankfully, a lot of it did. And then the third person, as I moved into marketing at that point, was a gentleman who was leading marketing and biz dev at PwC named Howard Kravitz, who, interestingly, after leaving PwC, also has had a career at a number of law firms in similar roles. But he was one of the ones who taught me not only how to be a really strong marketer, but two key things. One is the focus on client service, meaning our clients are the stakeholders in the firm, the partners and the associates that we're working for, not the end clients. And a lot of marketers at any firm I've been at don't understand that distinction and how important it is that we're meeting their goals in addition to the goals of the firm. And he also taught me the importance of building a really strong team and being a really strong leader, and always being there, always being available, and always being open to new ideas, whether they're internally from the team, whether they're externally from individuals that we meet or agencies that we work with or contractors that we've hired. But the way things are not always the right way, and that we should be open to continuous improvement.
Yeah, that's great. So it sounds like you've definitely had a few mentors along the way. I love the one about the status quo, and I think it's probably really relevant to you stepping into a new role. So I'm sure Cooley has been doing a lot of the same things, over and over again. I know you're 2 months in, but how are you thinking about challenging the status quo there? Like, how are you prioritizing what that first 90, 120 days, whatever the time period is?
So one of the interesting things about Cooley is the dichotomy of the nature of the firm, which is it is highly entrepreneurial and it has grown tremendously over the past 20 or so years. And the makeup of a lot of our clients are early stage private companies, a lot of technology companies, as you were referencing. And so we don't want to in any way squash that entrepreneurial culture and those that are leading the firm. But at the same time, we have to balance that with this is now a multi-billion-dollar organization and one that needs to have a little bit of process put into place. We have to be careful not to over-index. So in terms of the early days, what we're focusing on is a couple of things. Number one is aligning on a North Star. There wasn't really a clear vision of what marketing and business development was supposed to do at Cooley. And so how can we get everybody on board, not just our own team, but also leadership and the firm at large around what our goals are going to be. And also to be very clear what marketing is and what it is not. Because right now we have a lot of team members who are doing things that invariably land in marketing that aren't marketing related. Then from there, tying to the overall business strategy, because there's a lot of really good marketing that's being done, but it's not necessarily accretive to what the firm's goals are. So we need to connect those two together. And then there are a number of things that we need to do just to advance the organization in terms of right now, there's not a lot around key metrics, what our goals are, what that measurement is going to look like, having standardized measurement tools in place, et cetera. So that as well, because one of the things that was a little surprising to me is I have a number of partners that I work with who say, I love my marketer, I hate my marketer, let's keep him or her, let's get rid of him or her. And I don't want to sound cheeky, but the next question is something along the lines of, based on what? Because there is no strategy and there are no goals. So I'm glad that you like them or that they're doing what you asked them to do, but we really need to actually align that to what the business goals are. So that's going to be the near term over the next couple of months. We're already well into that journey. Beyond that, we are looking at doing a transformation across the board. So similar to what I had done historically, that starts with looking at the team, identifying the right structure. Right now, there's a ton of silos in place. There's a lot of individuals that don't necessarily sit in the right seat based on their skill sets. There's a number of individuals who are doing things in isolation and aren't aligned to overall strategy. And so that will be number one. Number two is, I referenced earlier, putting process in place. Everything from processes internally for our marketing and business development team, identifying what those roles and responsibilities are, putting in workflow solutions so that we can track and manage throughout and really show up as one team. Equally as important is getting the partners in the practice to understand said processes, because right now it all is very opaque to them. and they should understand why decisions are being made, how they're being made, know that they are going to be responded to within a certain amount of time, that we have appropriate governance in place, et cetera. And then from a technology perspective, the firm does have a fairly rigorous MarTech stack. Part of it is getting the data in a better state, like I'm sure every other interview you've had on the show has said. And part of it is determining how we get the most out of our technology and really deciding how that technology can work best, not only together with systems within marketing, but across the firm, and also how we can leverage newer and emerging technologies. So things like automations, AI, and other software that will allow our marketers time back in their day so they can focus on that high value activity.
Gotcha. Yeah, a lot of work ahead there. Um, you also had mentioned, or previously we thought leadership content, and I'm curious. You mentioned original research as well. Where do you see that evolving at Cooley? Is that part of the playbook? How do you take that maybe to the next level?
I see tremendous opportunity, and it's probably passion point number one for me. Um, I believe that any professional services firm should be built on a platform of thought leadership. And to be very clear, Cooley is putting out some great insights, and I'm very impressed with what the team has been putting out. Where there is tremendous opportunity is, number one, having a content strategy in place. We do not currently have a lead content strategist who is going to look holistically around what do we want to put out? What do we want to put out at the Cooley brand level? What do we want to put out at functional levels within regions, with industries, et cetera? How do we have that content help drive revenue at different stages of the funnel? How do we customize and personalize that based on nature of the company, nature of the individual, et cetera? How do we make sure that we have always on? How do we make sure that we are agile enough to respond to current market triggers? How do we make sure that we are in the right distribution channels? Right now, there's a very small amount of paid media. There are some owned channels. There are some earned channels. But how do we really take a step back, and put that overall strategy in place and use thought leadership to help drive everything from top of the funnel through the proposal and sales process?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think, thought leadership, we advise a lot of our clients on that as well. And we think about it a lot of times as like origination. How does it help originate top of funnel new deals? And how does it help accelerate deals that are, already in the pipeline? And a lot of times, everybody's thinking a lot of times it's just about filling the funnel, but it's also about how does it help move people down the funnel? So yeah, that's great. One more question as far as Cooley, how are you're now integrating marketing and business development. I'm not sure if that's new, but what possibilities does that really unlock, having those two functions together?
So it is not new for Cooley. Cooley was one of the first firms to have a more traditional business development function. Many law firms now have either built or are in the process of building business development functions. It's a little bit unique in the law firm environment because you have, at most firms, and they use the term interchangeably, marketing or business development, you have either the marketers or business developers doing everything from brand marketing through proposal development and delivery. And so we look at that in a couple of different ways. And again, our evolving structure will reflect how we look at the distinctions between marketing and business development, and how important it is for them to work together. Of course, part of it is to identify new clients, drive new opportunities, et cetera. But it's equally important that we build something that focuses on things like client success, account management, client listening, how we engage with different audiences, et cetera. So the BD team has been very successful at Cooley historically. We want it to be even more successful by having better integration and also clear delineation between what marketing and BD does. Currently, there's some gray areas and probably lost efficiencies in terms of multiple groups focusing on the same thing.
Sure. Got it. Awesome. So, well, yeah, I want to, maybe shift gears a bit. As we have a lot of our audience here are marketing agencies, and I believe at PwC you interface with a number of agencies. I'm not sure what the mix looks like at Cooley. Maybe you could talk to that a bit too. But curious whether in the old role or your new role, how do you find a great agency partner? Where do you go for that?
So a lot of it, unsurprisingly, old and new, is based on referrals and past experience. We all know that it's a very tight knit world in the agency space, and it's one where relationships really do matter. Secondarily, we at the new, I'll talk more about the new firm now, are looking more around also agencies that can help in specific areas. So surge capacity and being able to do so quickly, effectively, and in a cost-effective way as well, to bring in skill sets that we don't have. So if we're looking at a new technology or something from an advanced creative perspective, the agencies who come to us and say we can do X, that's a wonderful way of us learning about new capabilities, especially because I often don't know what's out there and what agencies can deliver. And then thirdly, for a number of things, we still go at both firms, we still go through a traditional RFP process where we have identification of firms based on what our procurement teams identify. And we'll go through a formal process in terms of identifying who can be the best fit for our needs. Now, there's always that question of, do you go with a big holdco who's going to bring multiple agencies in? Do you work with only small boutiques? Do you work with some combo? And I will say for me personally, I would say the answer is yes, because I don't think that we would ever source all of our work to one agency because there are just so many great agencies out there that are specialists. And also we may need for points in time at multiple points in time. But at the same
Sure.
time, there are others that we were going to continue to work with who are there and on the speed dial.
Sure, sure. Yeah, that's great and great insights there on how you go about it. You mentioned obviously thought leadership being important as a professional services firm. Curious, like, do you consume any thought leadership content of agencies? Does anything stand out as far as that being a way for you to, for them to get on your radar?
Yes. So I am actually a voracious reader and I sign up for as many lists as I can. And I also am on planes every week. So it's a great time for me to catch up. On thought leadership, I will say there are a number of agencies that I find incredibly helpful, especially those that are doing trend hunting. Even if it's in the B2C space, it's still something that's relevant for me to know in the B2B space. I love thought leadership where it includes case studies of what they've done and what others are doing. I also appreciate thought leadership in terms of emerging and evolving trends in the operations of marketing. We're often very siloed in terms of what we see and know what other companies are doing, regardless of whether they're competitors. And I always
Sure.
find it fascinating to learn how other people are structuring, how they're allocating resources, how they're using technology, et cetera.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's great. So a lot of trends, future-facing type of content. Yeah, that's interesting. If you were running an agency today and you were trying to get on the radar of someone like yourself or a CMO, what would you maybe do differently than what most agencies are doing from a biz dev perspective?
I would say the number one thing is whether it's a formal pitch or not, is really being able to show, number one, an understanding of our company, and number two, what is differentiated about them as an agency and how that is going to benefit our firm. It is surprising to me how many agencies and some really well-known ones who come in and they give me the standard pitch deck and they talk about themselves for an hour. And it's like, I would never do that, but it happens all of the time. And the ones that really stand out are the ones that really personalize it and you can tell have spent the time and really want to listen and also co-create, meaning don't come to me and say, this is the work plan and you're either going to buy this or not, but say, here's a suggestion, but we can alter it in any way that we think would work best for both of us.
Yeah, really, really great advice there for agencies listening. So hopefully you're listening to that out there. So yeah, I think that this has been a great conversation. I'd like to close with kind of one final question, and really it's around advice that maybe you would give the next generation of marketing leaders coming behind you. What would you say to them?
Remain agile and remain curious. We've been in an environment the last few years where there has been so much of a revolution in terms of the business world and specifically the marketing aspect of it. It's not going to slow down. So understand that we are going to keep changing. When I say that we're going to do a marketing transformation at Cooley, that's going to be 1.0. And whether it's small modifications or another transformation, those are going to keep coming. And I know change is hard, but we have to have that through line. But at the same time, be okay with the fact that we're going to continue to evolve. And don't expect that what worked years ago or even this year is going to work next year. Consumer behaviors are changing so much, technologies are changing so much that we always have to stay on high alert to make sure that we are meeting the trends of what our buyers ultimately want.
That's great advice. So Matthew, that was fantastic. I want to thank you for sharing your journey. Look inside of Cooley and what's happening. We'll be watching. And for everybody that is watching this show, don't forget to follow CMO Journeys for more conversations with leaders that are shaping the future of marketing. I'm Christian Benak. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.